we got one more story before intermission, and our next storyteller was born and raised in Anchorage, and he's got a book coming out in April about this story that he is about to tell. So please welcome Glen Klinkhart.
So I stood there in the middle of an abandoned gravel pit with one job, to recover the body of a dead girl. I had been looking for this girl since summer, through the fall, winter, and now spring, where I finally got the killer's brother to tell me where they dumped the body. It wasn't just any body. It was the body of 21-year-old Bethany Carrera, a girl I never even met, but I'll tell you, I would have loved to have met her. She was smart, funny, athletic. She played 12 different sports, including hockey, on the boys' team. Bethany wasn't the only one that was missing that year, though. You see, I was missing from my friends, my family, my 5-year-old son, Evan. I missed a lot of things with him. It was his first year of kindergarten. I missed parent-teacher conferences, Christmas pageants, birthday parties. But he would always tell people when they'd ask, "Where's your dad?" He'd tell them, because he knew. "Oh, he's looking for Bethany, and he's going to find her." And that was because every time I would come home early enough to see him, the first words out of his mouth were, "Did you find Bethany today, Dad?" And I'd say, "No, buddy, not today, but I will." One night I came home and he was sleeping. I just wanted to watch him sleep, so I snuck into his room. And all of a sudden he stirred. Clearly I wasn't quiet enough. "Did you find her?" "No, buddy, not today, but I will." And then he opened his eyes and he asked me a question. He said, "Dad, if I'm ever missing, will you find me?" I leaned forward and I looked at him and I said, "Oh, buddy, if you ever go missing, I will find you. I will never stop looking for you, and I will find you. I promise you." He closed his eyes, smiled, and rolled back to sleep. So here I was in this gravel pit, grabbed my gear, my detective partner, grabbed his stuff. We got our guns, walked into the forest, just as the brother had told us, up to a fire pit. There it was, a ring of rocks, some old beer cans. Now I had to turn left. I turned, walked about 30 paces, and that's when I saw it. I knew we were close. A little indentation in the ground, about 3 inches deep, rectangle. This is where they tried to dig a grave, a shallow grave, but the ground was too frozen. So then I was going to look for a rise. I looked forward about 50 feet ahead of me. There was a rise. This is where they had taken her body wrapped in plastic, set her body down on that rise, cut open the plastic, and then just rolled her down the hill, covered her with leaves, and they left her. They just left her. I started walking faster. I wanted to run, and I stopped. No. My training kicked in. I put on my latex gloves. I walked around the crime scene. I walked around hoping to find her, but there was just some patches of snow, some leaves, so I went to the bottom of the hill. I got down on my knees, started kind of pushing the snow away, and that's when I saw it, a white puka shell. You see, I was one of the only people who knew that when Bethany was murdered, she was wearing a puka shell necklace that her boyfriend had given her. So I scooped up some of the ground, started pushing it away, and there was another puka shell and another puka shell. And then I saw it. Hair. Human hair. Bethany's hair. I went back to the car as I was waiting for the rest of the crime scene teams to drive up from Anchorage. And I was doing what we call tag and bag. Basically, I was taking the hair and the puka shells, putting it into paper bags, and I was putting our evidence tape on it, putting my initials, and then I put my badge number, and then I had to put the date, and I couldn't remember what day it was. "Detective Ryan, what's the date?" "May 3rd, he said, and then it hit me like a lightning bolt. May 3rd. It had been 365 days, 1 year exactly to the day, since Bethany had disappeared, and we found her. And then it was like Bethany tapped me on the shoulder and reminded me about somebody else I was missing. You see, May 3rd was also my sister's birthday, Dawn. My sister was only 17 years old. I was 15. My parents and I were out of town that weekend when a man broke into our house raped her, strangled her, then set her and the house on fire. Looking back now, there's no doubt in my mind and in my heart that that's why I became a homicide detective. So back at the gravel pit, we were there for 3 days. Myself and the rest of the detectives, agents, none of us wanted to leave. Nobody went to sleep until we had recovered all of Bethany's body. On the third day, there was a press conference. I was ordered back to Anchorage. But instead of the press conference, I had something I had to do first. So I drove over to the elementary school, pulled my police car into the front, walked around the back. All the kids were out at recess. And then I saw him, little blonde boy running around. I called to him, "Hey, Evan, come here." He comes running over, as little kids do, his arms flailing. I kind of leaned down to him. I said, "Hey, buddy, I want to tell you something." He looked at me. "I found Bethany." He smiled, and then he kind of looked at me. "Well, where was she?" Clearly, I had not thought this through. I said, "Well, she was in the forest." And he goes, "Was she cold?" I said, "No, buddy, not anymore." And then he had one more question for me. "Well, where is she now?" Oh, God. I thought, all right, I'll just tell him the best answer I have. I took her home to her mom and dad. He smiled, put his little arms around my neck, squeezed. "Good job, Dad," he said. "Can I go play?" "Yes, buddy, you can go play." I watched him run away into a sea of kindergartners. I stood up, wiped the tears from my eyes, turned around and walked back to my car. Okay, now I'm ready. Now I can tell the rest of the world that finally I found Bethany.